want war. Crime babies looking for food, starvation, the recipe, people subdued. When the people you trust got it in for you. Deceit is the word of the day in every clue. Don't let it go, it's from the days of old. Time is up, but some still do not know. Can I make up my mind? Is it worth the dime? Do I have to take a minute just to make it mine? Life's never fair, but don't listen to the TV. Go out and take a listen to the streets with the people in the slums and the homeless bums with degrees and degrees sitting under a tree. It's not easy in the world for the poor man, the one that brought you to reality. See, they don't want you to know about the black sheep. Even 7 roads to the 12 families all around the globe with an ancient code. Is it really asking a lot to say a death old? Cause we sitting on the earth looking back at extinct. Then I'm standing on some ground that's about to sink. I ain't scared for a minute, I ain't about to blink, but I documented for the world what I see and think. Feel we on the call and up and we on the break. All Congress gonna do is waste paper and ink. Vote or die, you voted and you'll die. You can have it both ways, can't say it's a lie. You can march all you want, but they playing you wrong. They only understand war, it's the same old song. They want war, all they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war. War, all they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war. Like a lotus coming out of the mud with colors, I create envy in those with power but jealous. I unify the poor with my song, the hell with the others. Descended the way they treat indigenous brothers, cause I understand we link forever. They try to hate us even though that we keep it together. I'm not talking about controlling the air or the weather. I'm talking about maintaining the truth, the high endeavor. A rebel drops bombs in the midst of trouble. The free world counterattack and now there's double. But nature gets the shit in a way that's subtle. If you stop the machines for a minute you might hear, but they won't cause the TV's whisper in the ear. And capitalism has eyes that don't tear, and they cloud up and get crazy and won't steer. And like an ab, it's hard to get an ass to listen. Living like this is like living in prison. It's hard to keep hope when you're living in prison. The spiritual thoughts, so yes, the mental prison. The outside, yes, it's got to get through. Something's gotta die, so something here can live. Your life is nothing if you got nothing to give. Keeping the spiritual, yes, disguise is religion. Controlling your mind, the mental prison. They want war, all they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war. War, all they really want is a war. Diversionary tactic to make the big score. The diamonds in the morning, you know they want more, but they wanna keep you low, so they manifest the war.
Everybody's doing good today, and we back at it again. It is November 2nd, 9:51 a.m. Central European Time. That will make it 3:51 Eastern Standard Time USA, and we're back on this political stuff. I hope everybody has had a good beginning of November. Despite the fact that loads of people didn't get snapped, obviously, right? It's been ordered by the judge, but however, twice, that Trump should release the funding. And but Trump's style. Trump doesn't like being told what to do. He doesn't like there being controls on the executive branch. Trump believes that the United States of America, the executive branch should be above all other branches, and that you basically can't do anything to make him do anything, the executive branch. That's what Trump has pretty much argued himself. And to be honest with you, I don't even know why he even pretends to follow the law, because he's already stated it. It's been in Project 2025. They don't believe the other branches of government are co-equal branches, and it just is what it is. It's no need to pretend. But for some reason, Trump seems to vacillate. Like, he's now saying, yeah, please show me where the money is and I'll do it. He's pretending he doesn't know where the SNAP money is, although his own government agency had it posted on their website a month ago. They weren't aware of that. Like, now they can't find it, which either means He doesn't want to issue the money, or it means it's stolen. Maybe he stole the money. How does anyone else know? If you're not the head of a government branch of a government agency, then who's going to tell you? You know, is a Trump appointee going to tell you if the money's there? Who's there to tell you? You know what I'm saying? And I don't know. Your guess will be as good as mine, I guess, on that one. But in any case, it's November 2nd. Folks usually get their SNAP on the 1st. And for people that don't know what SNAP is, that is what a lot of people call food stamps. And they're now finding out that they were also on it because it's called SNAP. And their own state representatives didn't inform them that the food subsidies that they get is actually the stuff they voted against. It's crazy, but a lot of Republicans didn't know they were on SNAP, and this is indicative of what the whole situation is across red states. They vote for stuff that they don't like because basically they feel like they're stopping other people from getting things when they vote, and they realize that, oops, we might use this shit more than anybody else, or we might need this shit more than anybody else. But we weren't thinking about ourselves. We were thinking about other people. We were thinking about what we don't like in other people, not about what we like in ourselves. So that is what the Republican Party has become. And whether they make it out of it or not, who knows? I mean, I personally don't think they will make it out of it, but your guess is as good as mine. Now let me see something. 2 seconds here. Let me just check the algorithm real quick. Let me see. I need to see if this is set up correctly. 2 seconds, y'all. Let me see here. And then we're going to get on with the program. I wanted to take a look at libertarianism, Peter Thiel's beliefs, Elon Musk beliefs, and even, hear a little bit from, what's this guy, Nick Fuentes, on libertarianism, his beliefs, it's actually pretty interesting. But just to, before we touch into some of the other hot topics, but let me see here. Where's this algorithm at? 2 seconds, y'all. Okay, here. I just need to check YouTube on the back end. Let me know if the audio is also okay, if you don't mind. Let me see here. Content. Okay. Overview. Okay. Well, let me see here. Okay. I'm almost there, y'all. 2 seconds. Sorry about the delay. Let's see here. Go to this. Boom. Boom. Okay, here we go. All right. So, okay. So now I'm in effect. All right, y'all. So now that I've checked that out, now let me see here. Let me put the chat also in subscriber mode real quick before I start. Sorry, I was a little late today. Actually, I was having a little discussion and I got late. I got held up for a second. But let me see here. Go back to this and put the chat in. Where is it at? In subscriber mode, and then we can get on with this talk. Anything gone on that I didn't miss? It was a lot of flooding. I heard there was some flooding. I mean, I saw there was some flooding in New York and Brooklyn. What do y'all think about this? I know Biden did an infrastructure rollout that Trump on day one halted. What is it looking like in terms of this storm in the U.S.? How many areas have been affected? Okay, I'm almost there. Yeah, how many areas have been affected by this? Let me know also if you know that. Is this it? What is this? No. Why am I not getting the right thing? Click on this. Oh, here we go. Okay, now I see. So let me put this in subscriber mode. Yeah, so people that enter the chat today, as long as you subscribe, it might take you 1 minute, subscribe, and then you're in the chat again. So, all right. So now I can get down to business. Now let me pull up this first. What is this? Oh, right. Here we go. I thought this was very, very interesting. In line with libertarianism. And Nick Fuentes. Now, see, a lot of these, some of the people that supported Trump, specifically Peter Thiel, but not all of them use the term libertarianism. But if you know the philosophy, right, and where it comes from, you can see different folks back it up. Elon Musk has a lot of these same ideas, right? But Peter Thiel, being the guy that's behind JD Vance, I thought it would be interesting to hear from him as well. But first, I wanted to start off with Nick Fuentes. And he really says some interesting things. So we may as well just get that up there immediately and just take a listen to what he says. I mean, because they're talking about how they believe the United States should work for people, for all its citizens, all its taxpayers. From this particular perspective, but this is a little bit from Nick Fuentes. So,
yes.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I wanted to meet you. I've heard about.
Of course, this is Tucker Carlson's show.
About you.
I've heard about you.
So, well, thank you. I want to understand what you believe, and I want to give you a chance in a minute to just lay it out, not what you're pivoting against, which are a lot of the same thing. I agree with you on some of the things you're pivoting against for sure, but what do you affirmatively believe? So I just want to stand back and let you explain it. But first I want to understand how you got to where you are, how you became Nick Fuentes. So this is my understanding of your life arc, and tell me if I'm wrong. You show up at Boston University. You grew up in a suburb of Chicago, kind of working class, western suburb, and you show up at Boston University in the fall of 2016 at the height of the battle between Trump and Hillary. It's like this kind of pivot point in history. And
he's a young guy. Nick Fuentes, I don't know how old he is, but he's probably close to half my age. Like, what is he, in his young 30s maybe? Or is he 30?
You show up with a MAGA hat and you have a Trump hat and you have like basically off-the-shelf Republican views?
Yes.
And so describe the views that you had then, and then describe what happened.
Okay, damn. What is that? Stop that. That didn't start? Okay, that was a little early. All right, here we go.
Hi, I'm standing here in Jægersborgade.
Oh, God. Sorry about this. Here we go. One more time. Boom.
It started in 2016, actually, because the primaries, started in 15, around April or May, I think was the first announcements. And I had very negative feelings about Trump. And like I said, pro Rand Paul, pro Cruz. But when the actual Iowa caucus happened and the primary.
Okay, Ryan Paul, another libertarian, right? So just to keep that in mind. And Nick Cannon is 27 years old. So he's basically half my age, which is weird to look at a guy like this and to think that he's half my age, but it just reminds me that when people are young and sometimes, it's just important to understand he's 27. So this is what he thinks as a 27-year-old man, or when he was 25, or when he was 20, when it started off with Hillary, right? So
began, I saw that Trump was dominating. And every night in the Super Tuesday, when they had all the big contests, one after the other, I remember the media was furious that he was winning one after the other. And I remember thinking to myself, like, structurally, if I'm a libertarian or a conservative and we want to change the country, we have to win elections. If you want to win elections, you have to bypass the media. I sort of had this realization that the media was really standing in the way. They were the problem. And I had this realization that all the conservatives and
okay, that's interesting, because that's a similar idea that Elon Musk has, which prompts him to buy his own media outlets, buy Twitter and, this kind of stuff.
Republicans up to that point were afraid to take on the media. They, like Mitt Romney, would cower before them and were so apologetic and so weak. And so initially I said, I I actually don't ideologically agree with Trump at all, but he will destroy the liberal media, or at least their monopoly on thought and opinion.
Yes.
And then a breakthrough can occur. So that was kind of the first hump. And I said, I could get behind Trump because he's a winner. He'll win for our side. And that was kind of the first big thing. And then as I listened,
I'm curious if he promoted that, or is he now in retrospect claiming this? But in any case,
more and more, his speeches and his rhetoric, I started to think about immigration.
Which you hadn't really considered before?
Never. And the reason why is because I was from a 95% white suburb.
Well, he has immigrant background himself. I mean, hence Fuentes. I think his grandfather. Let me see something here. Is Nick Fuentes family an immigrant family? How many generations in the USA? All right, let me okay, it says here that he's born in Chicago himself, so that would make him an American unless you go by some of Trump's new things, getting rid of the 14th Amendment. Maybe he would be kicked out, right? But his father's side is, it says here his father's side is of Mexican descent, which suggests that the side of his family immigrated from Mexico, likely within the last 2 or 3 generations, possibly his grandparents or great-grandparents, right? So, again, we had that talk about great-grandparents. I knew my great-great-grandmother when I was 7 years old, and she was 98, 99. You see what I'm saying? So, and she was born on a slave plantation, literally, in the United States of America. So when I think of someone mentioning great-great-grandparents, I think of it as within my lifetime, or a little more. I don't think of it as something I can't imagine, so far back. Okay. But in any case, it says his mother's side is of Italian and possibly Irish descent, which typically means they have been in the U.S. for several generations. All right. So he just has, I guess you could say this is 1900s. I would be guessing, right? So let's go on.
So the diversity had not really reached my corner of Chicago yet. Me and my family, not so much my family, they grew up in the city, but growing up in the suburbs, I was insulated from that. So it was just not even, it's actually, you're going to love this. This is, I don't know if I've ever even said this on an interview before. I was listening to Mark Levin's show. This goes to show how normie I was.
Actually?
I listen to him every day.
You listen to Mark Levin every day?
Again, I have this thing about how people casually and politely talk about, exterminating others, oppressing others, stealing rights away, taking rights away from others, talking about other people's place, what their place should be versus what, the other group's place should be in society, and how casually it's done, This is what it sounds like.
Every day.
In high school, yes.
Wow.
I was a fan. I loved his show. And I actually liked how he was kind of obnoxious and mean to his callers.
Yeah.
Vicious. And I liked that. I thought that was funny. But I'll never forget one show. He goes live and he says, America's becoming a majority non-white country. Does anybody think that's a good idea? And I was thinking to myself, yeah, that actually doesn't sound so good. I didn't really even think that America's becoming majority minority like that.
Okay, so there you have it right there. You see how this is like a casual, and don't get me wrong, I'm sure there's some kind of inquiry here going on by Tucker Carlson. But look, y'all, just for people that don't know, you should get a DNA test. The moment you have these ideas about what color, because they're talking about color. Oh boy, but color doesn't really tell you that much. It doesn't really tell you that much. To be honest with you, color can be very, very deceiving. It could be now, why? One of the top lawyers, or what is it? Top activist, but lawyer also, I believe. His last name was White, by the way, for the NAACP. And this is around the turn of the century. Also, he was running around and they were looking to hang his ass. They wanted to kill him. This is early NAACP, right? I forget the guy's name, but I could look him up. Now, he was categorized as a Negro, i.e. black, because that's what the word Negro means. It could also mean slave, right? But it means black slave pretty much, right? Or black, if you want to, maybe soften it up a little, right? Now, yeah, so that's supposed to be a whole nother race thing, a whole nother color thing. Right, great. But this guy named White, they couldn't distinguish him from other white people, but he was classified on paper as a Negro because what? His mother was a Negro. You see, so when he's talking about white and thinking about it as far as what a country should be, he's using color as the metric for what a country should be. You could already see, man, like, don't you value culture? Like, see, they flip from culture to now color, you see, which shows you they're hella confused. But I think either way, culture is a legitimate conversation to have. But when they view culture as a color thing, that's when they're just not even talking about culture anymore. For me, they're talking about color, and at all times, pretty much, no matter if they cover it with the lens of culture, right? But the reality of it is that, that should never be the criteria for what a country is, a metric for who is a citizen or who should be able to live in a country or who is a real citizen. So you're trying to tell me that unless your color is white, you can have limitations put on you. You should have limitations put on you in the United States of America. And that's supposed to mean, your color is supposed to mean what? That your ancestors fought for the freedom of the country, the independence of the country? Is it supposed to mean that they fought in the Civil War? Is it supposed to mean that they were even here? Is that what the color is supposed to mean? No. The color is not supposed to mean that at all. The color doesn't even mean that, because we see Sean Hannity. He's like, these cats are all pushing this right wing agenda. And Sean Hannity, his parents migrated to the U.S. And he's like one of the biggest Fox News right wingers. You see what I mean? So basically, they're casually talking about racism, trying to supplant what real Americans are, a multitude, right? A beautiful patchwork of Americanism, even of the world, even, and they're trying to narrow it down now to a color. You can imagine what they do. Next thing you know, all they're going to want people to do is eat ham and hash browns for breakfast and shit. It's like, come on, man. Anyway.
Radicalized on Race by Mark Levin?
Yes.
Are you making that up? That's
a real story.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm. He planted the seed, at least.
So you were radicalized on Race by Mark Levin?
Yes.
Are you making that up? That's
a real story.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm. He planted the seed, at least. And then I saw a graphic on 4chan or Twitter, and I'm sure you've seen something similar. It said, this is what the map looks like, the electoral map, if only men vote, if only women vote, if only whites vote, if only non-whites vote. And it became very obvious what the electoral problem is. It's demographics. These immigrants are coming here. They're going to turn Texas blue like they turned California blue.
Yeah, I saw it happen.
Yeah, and you look at even the opinion polls. These people don't believe in free speech. They don't believe in the Constitution, the Second Amendment. As a libertarian, the things that are, and as American, things that are important to you, they don't believe, they don't understand these things. And so I said, that's another political obstacle. You've got the media, you've got...
Now look at this. But then when you look at Trump, does Trump believe in the Constitution? That's so, anyway, let's listen to more.
Immigration. So I'm thinking like, well, we're going to vote for Ted Cruz. He's going to be the constitutionalist. We'll vote for Rand Paul. He'll be the libertarian. But what stands in the way of political power for us? It's the media and it's immigration. So I said, well, we got to get Trump to beat the media, build the wall, deport the illegals. And once we set the country straight, then we can actually have our constitutional republic back. That was kind of the idea. And that's the mindset that I had going into college.
Excuse me.
I have. Okay, so that was him going into college. All right, so that's fair enough. That was some time back. All right, so he's basically saying 10 years ago he was a racist. and that's what he was thinking like in college. Okay, so let's carry on.
Amazing. So then what happened?
So I go to college, and I'm just, at that point, a huge Trump supporter. And you got to understand, for me, for my generation, so I was 18. I turned 18 in
I'm trying to find the part where he's talking about libertarianism, but so let's just let him talk.
August 2016. And to us,
That's
Trump...
amazing.
Yeah. Well, because we're like the first generation that was influenced by Trump coming of age in that moment.
No, I say it's amazing because when you're living in something, you don't appreciate its full significance. But to be 18 in August of 2016, so this really is, as you're forming your views and really yourself.
Yes.
In the middle of this. We'll admit that we are not the most disciplined snackers. When the pantry calls, we answer. It can be cruel, but what if there was a way?
What the heck is this? A commercial by Tucker? All right, let me see something here. Let's get beyond this. Come on.
This is starting to kick up. And I catch the attention of my peers, and they start going at me on Twitter and giving me death threats. We're going to kill you. How dare you? If I see you, I'm going to beat your ass, that kind of thing. And this is my first experience with this. Now we're all kind of desensitized to it, but that was my first run-in with this intensity from the left. So I file a police report. I get real nervous. And
okay, he's still talking about his background, so I'm going to fast forward it.
I tweeted to Ben Shapiro. I said, I've never seen anything on the Daily Wire that's actually critical of Israel. And he quote tweets me. And at this time, I have 1,000 followers on Twitter.
How old are you?
Now, this is interesting because now he's critical of Israel. And at the same time, you hear him. Okay, so for him, it sounds to me like he's not just critical of Israel because he's got broader ideas about Jewish people in general, right? Which I denote like things that KKK's been talking about for over a century now in the U.S. You know what I mean? Since the turn of the century, the early 1900s or late 1800s, right? KKK, they were literally talking about Jews now and others, right? Now, but now he's talking about Israel, and so he's against Israel. So this is kind of like where the split of the Trump folks come into play, right? But let me hear more because I want to hear some of his views about the makeup of what the U.S. He already said early on he believed it was concerning that the white part of the U.S. is like, maybe changing. But for me, I look at that as insane, because what scientists know today is that all of this shit is basically, it's pretend. It's pretend. These people are no more linked together by their color than they're linked together with any other human being. I mean, this guy literally could have some African ancestry in him, like straight up. I mean, he could have, I'm talking about not just a portion that he doesn't know. You can't look at him and know if his great granddaddy was an African or a black person. You can't know this by looking at him. So a lot of this talk game about this and these people, when they go there, it doesn't actually match up, which is why I think a lot of them don't get into DNA or don't want to talk about their DNA when they're talking about immigrants, when they're talking race politics. They don't want to talk about DNA, but even his name, Fuentes, but anyway, let's listen.
You're still a freshman in college. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And this is even before I started my show.
I'm going to get to Peter Thiel in a second.
And I don't know, I probably got 100 likes on this tweet. It wasn't a viral tweet. He quote tweets me and says, "To accuse a Jew of dual loyalty is the surest sign of anti-Semitism." And this is how it sort of begins. And I see this tweet. And by the way, that was on Christmas Eve in 2016.
He immediately called you an anti-Semite.
Mm-hmm. So I'm driving to...
So you hear this, so you have, this is very ironic because this group would say that they don't like Muslims. The group that Nick Fuentes represents, they don't like Muslims because of religious and racial ideology, right? And a distorted view of history, I guess, or whatever, his particular view of history. Let's say that, right? This is very, very ironic because what they say they don't like in Muslims, people like Nick Fuentes are actually recreating it through a Christian lens, which is obviously you can see when you're burning up crosses in people's yards and when, these kind of things, it's pretty fanatical at that point, right? To terrorize people, burning a cross in their yard. There can be that is almost like signature fanatic Christian American bigotry, right? Now, but let's listen some more.
Christmas Eve Mass with my family, and I see on Twitter the notification comes up.
I mean, he's got a lot in common so far with what he's claiming Muslims don't like.
Ben Shapiro quote tweets me, calling me an anti-Semite. And I was like, what is this? Like, why is this guy attacking me?
Yo, click the like button, y'all.
Because I don't have a platform at this time. I'm not an influential guy or anything. And so then I put out another tweet similar. I said something like, if you're China first, you should live in China. If you're Mexico first, you should live in Mexico. If you're Israel first, maybe you should go live in Israel. And again, he quote tweets me and says, you're an anti-Semite.
That same night?
This was, I think, a couple weeks later. Happened a little bit further down the line. And so...
Were you surprised that he knew you were?
Yeah, I was. I was surprised at why he cared.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking, how does he even know who I am or what I'm about? And it turned out that Cassie Dillon, she had texted him earlier and she wanted him to take me under his wing. She texted him after that debate and said, you really like this guy. He's amazing. He did this great debate. She goes, but he's a little too pro-Trump. He's a little too Trumpy. And he goes, I'll take a look. And so I guess the two of them were kind of like grooming me in a sense. They wanted me to go maybe and be a Daily Wire or maybe looking me as a potential conservative activist or influencer. And so they started paying attention to me. And the more critical of Israel I was, I started to get this really intense pushback from the both of them and from a lot of the people at Daily Wire.
Why do you think, so you're an 18-year-old college freshman, you're clearly talented and you're engaged.
Now this is interesting. I got a question. What do you all, given the fact that this kind of talk that he's saying, whether you agree with it or not, you have to admit a lot more people are saying this than just right-wing Christian extremists like Nick Fuentes, right? Because I do believe, is he a self-proclaimed white supremacist? But why do you think he would have this same talking point that maybe other people would have, right? That are being called extremists also. Don't get me wrong. I have my own particular views. Like, number one, I don't believe Israel controls the United States of America. I don't believe Jews do. I don't believe Jews control the world. I don't believe Jews control the banking system. I don't believe none of that shit. Right? I'm sorry. I think that's just way too easy, and same thing you would do when you want to monsterify any group of people, right? You take away all other things and just leave it up to what their ethnicity is or the thing you want to target, right? But why do you think that this talking point is so similar to what, let's say, a lot of, I personally hear this kind of talk from people that don't like Israel. I typically hear it from people that, like Trump is talking about, Hamas, right? And I'm not saying they're right or wrong. Obviously, they have a long history in this situation with Israel. Many generations now of fighting each other, right? Hezbollah, Iran. Why do you think he have similar talking points like that of the actual groups, other groups that he claims to be against? Just explain it to me, because that's where I get lost at.
You're really interested, and you ask not crazy questions like, what is this? Mm-hmm. And rather than explain it, they just call you a racist, call you an anti-Semite. Like, that's the first response. Again,
that's what is actually happening. A lot of people are saying this. There are also, ironically, I don't know if these people are leftists, but you hear a lot of people that are pro-Palestinian say the same thing. For example, say the same thing, that they're not allowed to criticize without getting this reaction. Now, I'm just curious, like, are these two groups, do they parallel each other? Like, who does Nick Fuentes parallel outside of the quote unquote white Christian extremist ideology? Who else does he parallel in talking points?
That seems like the least effective. Well, it turned out to be not very effective in your case, but that seems like the least effective thing you could do. Why do you think they did that?
Well, I think that you have to look at it not in retrospect, because hindsight is 2020. And so looking back, you could say they made a terrible mistake because look at sort of what they provoked or what they catalyzed. But at that time, you got to consider, I'm 18 with no following, with no network. I'm coming from the suburbs of Chicago. My parents didn't go to college. I have no connections. And so for them, it was very easy that if they detected that a promising young guy was going to become anti-Israel in the conservative movement, they could crush that person easily and grind them under the heel. So they sort of were alerted, oh, there's a precocious young guy that isn't on board with Israel. We'll keep an eye on him. And if he gets too vocal or popular, we'll cut him down, we'll crush him. Because at this time, as you know, in 2017, it's a very different time. 2016.
Right. So he established this view in 2017, right? So let me just move on here. Hold on, Deli. Let me get to the next part. Where is this at? Right here. Okay. Here we go. Oops.
Factor 11.
2 seconds.
Is that, like, where does that leave you ideologically? Like, how are you changing at this point?
So at this point, I'm realizing that something is deeply wrong here in the
Okay, so he's decided to change his views after he's explored a little bit, been given the freedom to explore. All right, so
conservative movement, because we were led to believe in those days of the campus culture wars and Gamergate and all that, is that we're the marketplace of ideas and we're about free speech and the rest of it. And here I am being like nuked from orbit by Ben Shapiro as a kid, and for asking what I thought were reasonable questions, because I didn't come from some strange background. I come from a normal home. You know, my parents are Catholic. They're married. We came from a relatively affluent suburb. I went to Lyons Township. That's like a very affluent high school.
What does that mean, normal?
In other words, I didn't wake up as like the son of William Luther Pierce. I wasn't like a skinhead or something. I was like a normal guy.
Okay. So he doesn't consider himself the most extreme. All right.
It was like, yeah, like country's too diverse. We're too pro-Israel. Like, this is reasonable. And I was just getting sandbagged for it and blacklisted. And what's more, nobody.
He said the country's too diverse. That's what he says, And I think, it's really interesting. I think it's crazy, the way he's expressing that. Because, again, using color as a metric, I think is just insanity. It's just insanity. Like, you literally are going to harm yourself thinking this way. Look at how the people who have this view vote against their best interest. You see, just look at the last election. You had an opportunity to vote on your tax dollars having an effect on your life in a positive way. Only, Americans, we talked about this before, only 50% of the taxes they pay actually directly affect their lives. They actually see day to day at work. And what did these people do? They voted against the SNAP program that they're on. They voted against health care benefits that they largely receive. So again, it just makes me, I think they do more harm when they go after that metric. Like, what do you look what do you perceive to look like metric? Because let's be honest, even you need help, right? And I think they project this, like, if you need help, why would you constantly point a finger at someone else who might need help if you yourself need help? And I think they've been doing this for like a generation now or more in the US, to where they're basically isolating and excluding themselves from what the American dream is. And I think that's what they're angry about. I mean, the United States has never had one ethnicity. It just never has. It's never done any of those things with one ethnicity, not in the beginning, not today, that's not ever what made the U.S. great. And I mean, of course, there's been struggles based on ethnicity too, but these struggles, they're not broken down into simply color either, even though racialized laws were enacted. But those weren't the only trials and tribulations going on. Literally, people were burning witches in the U.S. They had the same color. You see what I'm saying? So there's a lot of struggles. What about the struggle of women? Their own women couldn't even vote. So I think this guy, when they do that, it takes a lot away from the gift of what could be American, and they just kind of throw it away, But let me let him talk some more. I'm sorry about that.
Cared, because I remember going on Twitter and saying, why isn't anyone sticking up for me? Where's Dave Rubin? The free
because it's fucking crazy.
speech warrior. Where's he on this one? Where's Shapiro? Where's all these people? And in some way, they were all sort of complicit in this. So I realized that the conservative movement was completely bankrupt in that way.
Yeah, well,
and
you're
I became very radical.
Well, you became.
He's trying to. I see Tucker Carlson is trying to make this conversation interesting and not dumb as fuck. It's good to know Nick Fuentes' background. Me too. I never heard. It's good to hear from his own mouth. But, to attempt to intellectualize this ain't no intellectual conversation they're having. This is just stupid shit. If you ask me, it's just ignorance. It's ignorance, And, he may not see himself as extreme, or he may see himself as coming from quote unquote normal background. But what is a normal background in the U.S.? You have mountains, you have hills, you have valleys, you have oceanside, beachside, you have lakes. What's normal? Some people grow up, let's just talk about European people with European ancestry. Not like that's one thing. Not like Europe is one country or one culture, right? But let's say, for example, you had people that grew up in areas where the big industry was cutting down trees and picking potatoes. Are they the same as the people that come from Alabama? The European ancestry people that come from Alabama, their lifestyle, is it the same? No, they're dealing with pigs and other shit. You see what I'm saying? Raising cow. You see what I mean? What the fuck is the same about that? I just don't get it. And he's attempting, and Tucker Carlson also gives him permission, in a sense, to try to make believe it into being one thing when these people didn't even largely like each other in American history. The French people were feeling oppressed by British people. I'm talking about once they became American, once this American thing, I'm talking about in the turn of the century, in the 1900s. This is what was going on. Different European background ethnicities didn't necessarily feel they were treating each other well. You see what I'm saying? I'm being factual about this. Okay, if you never knew, you should look it up for real. And then when I hear this guy and I hear Tucker Carlson, they seem to try to make that experience into one thing, But
let me just say, I'm so familiar with, I was much older when it happened to me and much more insulated. I was not a college student. I was 45. So, and I was in a much better place to withstand the pressure. But I do think this is my main question to you, is when you get attacked, when people call you names, like they always called me racist, and I would always think to myself, I'm actually not. I would tell you if I was racist. I'm a little sexist, but I'm not racist.
And you see how he just said that so politely. I'm a little sexist, but I'm not racist. Okay. It sounds to me like he's both sexist and racist and just doesn't think it's that bad,
And I never understood why they did that. And then I thought, maybe the point is to make me racist.
That makes no goddamn sense. Maybe the point was to... Even Nick Fuentes doesn't even believe that shit. Look at him. He's like, That threw him on the left...
Why they did that, and then I thought maybe the point is to make me racist.
Bullshit point. You see that? Look at this. You know, and I could see Tucker Carlson likes to lead people. He likes to try to suggest people, you know, what they could say in this thing. Look at that. So now here's the excuse, y'all. Oh, y'all it's, you know, you woke people are trying to make them racist. Yay. That's what it is, because of course they wouldn't be racist on their own, right? Can't take responsibility for that, you know, because if you don't take responsibility for it, you can't do anything about it, right? You know, because it's someone else's fault. I mean, that's pure bullshit. That's gaslighting. Look, if you want to be a racist, be one. What the hell? Like, what the hell? No one's stopping. I mean, if you want to be prejudiced, be prejudiced. You know, but there are laws. You can't be an outright Christian in the United States of America. Why? Because they have modern day laws that are against a lot of that shit Christians used to do in the Bible. You can't be an outright Muslim in the United States of America because they have laws in the United States of America and in most countries, most Western countries, where you cannot do a lot of that shit you were doing in the Quran, like slavery. You can't do that. There's no okay slavery in modern times. Slavery is all bad. You see what I mean? You can't rape a woman, you know, and then decide the way you deal with the crime is by marrying her, and now the rape never happened, and you give her dad some shillings and everything is okay. No, that's not right. You see what I mean? And I don't know. It just, to me, it just seems like this whole conversation is just racism splaining. I'm saying no one has to live. If you don't want to live next to somebody and you have the money, then you don't have to. But, you know, no one's forcing you to be something you don't want to be. You see what I mean? But I think it's a little, it's not honest when you don't want to look in the mirror and look at your own failures. If you have to live around other people that are different from you in the United States of America, it's because you have not worked hard enough, earned enough money to be special. You just have to deal with the same shit everybody else is dealing with. And by the way, people that live next to you may not like your ass. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you ever think of that? That's what gets me about this. You know, he acts like his thought is special, you know, but bigotry, not like it, or being prejudiced is not the same thing as racist. That's why I was saying this, because racist is when you can act on this stuff, when you impact someone else's life, like a job because of their color or the, you know, these kind of things. That, you know, that's race, or whatever it would be. Stop someone from having a job because of their sexual orientation. That's homophobia, you know, these kind of things. You know, but this to me just seems like ignorance. They're just trying to normalize ignorance, and it doesn't make any sense. I mean, you're not supposed to be fraternizing with employees anyway. You're not really supposed to go into employees' private lives anyway. You know, isn't that kind of weird when you have a boss that's all up in your private shit? Isn't that kind of weird? Is that what your work experience is like? I mean, because it's not mine. That's not my work experience. No one asked me nothing about anything personal, to be honest with you. We're having a nice, friendly time. Nothing about politics. Maybe every once in a while something, because goddamn, this shit with Trump was really big. So people at work had to talk about Trump. Had to talk about what the U.S. was doing to threaten Greenland and how fucked up that was. And, you know, people had to talk about Trump. Now, don't get me wrong, but is that politics? No, that's just talking about a damn lunatic that's global. But outside of that, nah, man, you do your job. People want you to do your job. People appreciate you because you do a good job. And in this case, they don't seem to understand that. Like, I don't know. It's just... You get to a point where you're like, well, if you're going to slander me, then I'll just become the thing. I wanted to hear what his thoughts were about liberalism, because he explains it in here.
You're calling me. I do think that's a feature of human nature, don't you? Mm-hmm. And if you stare too intently at the accusers, at the, you know, whatever.
All right, let's just go on. Identity politics.
Energy supply.
Forget it. I got the Peter Thiel thing queued up, but here,
being-
let me just see if I can.
There's like a true, not just principle, but like spiritual reality that we have to defend, which is God created every person as an individual, not as a group. No woman gave birth to a community. Like, we hate that kind of thinking,
Yes.
right? Collectivist thinking like that. That's identity politics. That's what Dave Rubin engages in. That's why Dave is like just a child. Like, you don't pay any attention to Dave because he's like shallow. But we're not going to be that, right? Or no?
No, I completely agree with you. And, you know, like, and not to be that guy and say that thing, but like, my best friend is a Jewish person,
No,
you know?
I
So
know,
like, but here's my substantive disagreement, because as a Catholic, I could not agree more with you
Yes.
in what you're saying. I love all people, even the ones that don't like us. We have to love them all. And we have to recognize that,
We're required to.
yes. And especially Aquinas says the Jews are a witness people. And so,
Damn, look at this. He's talking about Jews again. You know, this is like, look, here it is. This is an hour into it. They started off damn near with Jews in the beginning, yo.
so they actually have special protections under the law, according to Catholic philosophy. But I guess my substantive,
What does that mean? Special? They have special what under the law according to Catholic? Yo, there's separation from state and church. So I'm curious what this
and we have to recognize that,
We're required to.
yes. And especially Aquinas says the Jews are a witness people. And so they actually have special protections under the law, according to Catholic philosophy. But I guess my substantive disagreement, which I've said on the show also, is the idea that neoconservatism and Israel has nothing to do with Jewishness, Jewish identity, the Jewish religion, because clearly the state of Israel and the neocons are deeply motivated by that ethnic identity, and their allegiance to Israel proceeds from that. You know, the plan of greater Israel.
So, okay, this is obviously, you could see this is where he goes into this stuff about Jews, but you know, the United States, there's separation of church and state. So it doesn't matter what religion you're talking about. So it's, in my mind, I don't know. In my mind, it seems a little weird that he's going all up into this, because it doesn't matter what your theology says, your religious theology, you can't practice it fully 100%. Any religious, you can't practice Christianity, Judaism, Islam in the United States, not verbatim what it says in these books. You can't do it verbatim. You must have a guide, a person to reinterpret, to interpret that, oh no, it doesn't mean this, it means this. We have animal rights laws, so you can't just do this the way they did it in the Bible when they wanted to pray. You have to do it a different way because it's against the law, right? And he's going up in his head from a Christian perspective, like, to me, it just seems like the wrong way to go, man. Like, too much in the wrong direction. I don't know. I put it to you like this: turn of the century. I mean, not turn of the century. 1800s in the U.S. They were burning witches. Was it 1700s? Let me look that up. Let me look this up.
Blood and soil nationalism of Israel. It stems from this ethno-religion, which is Judaism.
Well, this is, just BLM, the new version. This is identity politics. They're engaging in identity politics. I mean, that's just so obvious to me. But the problem in your response, I get what you're saying.
Okay, that was colonial America. They were burning witches, 1700s. But in any case, if you're going to claim, Catholicism and all of this stuff, right, then what's up with that? Hold on, let me see.
But the problem in your response is it does not apply to every individual.
No, and I would never say that.
Okay. Well, I just think it's important to say that, not to kind of like dodge the accusations against you. My best friends are Jewish. Like, okay, I agree. Embarrassing, even though it's probably true. And it's true in my case, actually. But whatever.
Right. That was Catholic. That was American colonial Catholics burning witches in America. You see what I mean? So I don't understand what any of this is talking about, because they're acting like there's no good and bad in any of these beliefs, or that there's no equal problem issue for any of these groups. It's like the same issue that a Catholic would have is the same one that a Jew would have. You can't verbatim do everything according to these books. It's illegal. Muslim, same thing. You can't do it verbatim, but he's kind of talking about it like one should be able to do it. And how if you can't do it from that perspective, he's oppressed maybe or something. I don't know.
But because just that principle that we're all judged as individuals by what we do, that our faith, the decisions that we make, the way we live our lives, and God will judge every one of us in that way. And that's how we're supposed to judge. Like, I think that's true.
Yeah, and I totally agree. But I guess the disagreement is you say identity politics like it's a bad thing. I think identity is a reality.
Identity is a reality. Absolutely. You just can't have a country of 350 million this diverse where it's just like warring ethnicities, because then it's.
I think it's because, they see their ethnicity as something that it isn't. I think that's where the problem lies. Sure, there's going to be, you could call it, it's them who call it identity politics, by the way. I don't call discrimination identity politics. I don't think when somebody says, hey, you're discriminating against me because of my color, that's identity politics. That's anti-discrimination. Okay. And I think these cats confuse themselves. Like, they don't understand. It's not just you that can't do it towards someone else. Someone else can't do it to you. It's still illegal. You can't be, if you do this to, let's say, for an example, if a black person refuses to hire a white person, a person who's white, obviously, or identifies as white, or looks, it's not even that. Let's say you look at someone, you believe they're of a different, they're different than you, and you're not hiring them because they look different from you, period. That's called discrimination. It doesn't matter who's doing it. It doesn't matter who's doing it. If it's supposed to work for everybody, right? So I'm not really seeing how to me it sounds like when you don't have the right to discriminate against someone else, then I feel oppressed by that. And that's not right, because I don't know where they attach it to something good. I don't know where they attach it to anything good, to be honest. They do try to go back to history and make it seem like it was good. But let me tell you, it was a lot of poor white people in America. They weren't all slave masters, and they weren't all rich, and they didn't all have rights. And this guy is looking at that shit like that was good. Like, I don't get it. I don't get it. The Union Army, what does that mean? It's to enhance people's rights, to make laws, to make things better for the average person, for the everyday person. That took time. That wasn't the original intent that was going on in America, And so to me, it seems like they kind of confused about colonial history versus the America, and the Union and things like this. Later history, a history that comes later, 100 years later or more. You see what I mean? But let's see.
I mean, it's Rwanda soon. And, the people.
Yeah, he's a damn anti-Semite. He's confusing the fuck out of me too. Like, what the hell?
With the most force just kill the others. So, like, you can't have that here. Right?
Yeah. But I would say specifically as it pertains.
But what kills me is Tucker Carlson is sitting here talking to him like this shit is normal. Like, he's nicifying it. He's making it sound like this is just a nice, normal conversation. These are conversations we have around the dinner table, y'all. No, this is the conversation we have. Let's just get all the kids together in the school and, sit in the auditorium and let's talk about all of these things. It's like, damn, this dude's an open bigot, and he's making it sound like that's healthy, that what he's talking about is healthy. I mean, he might see it as like, you're stopping my right. I have the right to say this. I'm free, man. But Nick, if I could tell you what you're talking about is not healthy to yourself, your own mind, man, you better look into some shit, because you're not what you think you are, bro. Like, you are not. you're not even close to it. You're confused, and you're confusing a lot of other people. And Tucker Carlson is leading people on with this. I'm really, really sure Tucker Carlson's reasoning in this is political power. It has nothing to do with believing anything Nick Fuentes says. It's just, this is what a certain political group has decided they're going to promote. Racism to distract people, to steal all the wealth. The same racist people will remain poor, by the way. The wealth, for it to be wealth, it can only be in the hands of a small few, a handful of people. That's not their intent, but they will use these people.
I think,
hence Peter Thiel when we come up,
have said it's the neocons, and I think that neoconservatism, where does it arise from? It arises from Jewish leftists who were mugged by reality when they saw the surprise attack in the Yom Kippur War.
Yeah, that's a lot of it for sure. But then, how do you explain Mike Huckabee, Ted Cruz, and there are a lot like that, John Bolton?
Co-producer is going to give.
Yeah, I'm a little, they seem to be mixing up a lot of different people that got some different views, but
I've known them all. George W. Bush, Karl Rove. I mean, all people I know personally who I've seen be seized by this brain virus, and they're not Jewish.
Look at how he says brain virus too. That's kind of how Elon Musk talks, about these kind of things like viruses to the West, and don't be confused by this. They sound like they're talking about Israel, but the truth is, if you ask me, when you're talking to an American, right, I just have to remind me that the KKK hate Jews, and it has nothing to do with Israel. They hate Jews in America, and they don't have to have any relationship to Israel at all. It has something to do with something else totally different. It has something to do with their activism. I'm not talking about their activism. Yeah, basically in race relations, in anti-discrimination laws and activism in the U.S. That's why they hate Jews. You see what I mean? And, to me, how they just use Israel, and I'm not capping for Israel, and I'm not taking sides on that. I think Israel, and I don't think they're doing too well regarding peace, and cultivating peace. But I know that Palestinians and Israelis, they can speak for themselves. I'm not against Palestinians and I'm not against Israelis, but I do recognize different groups have maybe a liberal arm and some have an extreme, maybe more conservative or extreme arm, So, but to me, I think they use the Israel conversation, to mask it as what they're talking about, who they really hate in the United States politically. And then they always try to, somehow fuse it together to create some big monster so they can make an action against them. I think that's what's going on here, and they're trying to explain it in some other way. But I know a lot of Jewish Americans never heard the word Israel come out of their mouth one time. Never heard. In fact, I don't even know one that has Israeli relatives. You see what I mean? I just don't get it, to be honest with you. But
most of them are self-described Christians, and then the Christian Zionists who are.
Yeah, you see, the way they're talking about it is they don't get why a Christian would be having this thing. Look at American history, man. You don't understand the 60s? You don't understand the 40s? You don't understand America in the United States of America in the 40s, in the 30s, in the 40s, in the 50s? You don't understand that? You don't recognize or acknowledge different groups' history in the country, what that was like? You don't recognize that? See, let me explain it to a lot of people. This thing about when I see Christian white Americans talking about this, in the 40s, a lot of Jewish people came from, being oppressed in Europe by Hitler, who was anti-Semitic, and he was about purifying blood and all of this shit. When those people came to the United States, a lot of those people lived in black neighborhoods. They didn't live, they weren't living in other communities. They were some of them, but some of them were willing to live in black communities and start businesses. And when these people started businesses, they hired black people. And so for a lot of black Americans that grew up in certain cities, this is the first, time someone else would give them a job. Not that they didn't have jobs of their own too, some jobs, right? But this was a second avenue, so even for example, my own father, right, growing up in DC, the first job he had, right, and he grew up in the 40s in DC, right, first job he had was working for a Jewish pharmaceutical company. It's not a Jewish company, it's a pharmacy company. It was owned by a Jewish guy. That was his first job. So he had a job delivering pharmaceuticals, right? So could he get a job somewhere else? You see what I'm saying? Could he get a job somewhere else? Was it a good thing that he got a job, or should they have said, no, we don't hire Negroes like the rest of the fucking country was doing? You see what I mean? So when you hear people like this talking about that, they're like literally cutting out that whole reality. Like they're cutting it out completely and trying to pretend like that wasn't part of the American experience. And now today, of course, that also happened with different groups of people. Look at it's people that hate Biden to this day. They will try to make you believe they hate Biden for other reasons. No, people hate Biden because when Biden was a young dude, he actually grew up and was like, he was one of the white guys that wasn't scared of having a black friend. That's what that is about. You see what I mean? That's what that is about. The more you learn about Biden early, the more you learn what type of person he is, and that he was actually one that wasn't down with this kind of open bigotry and all of this shit. He didn't care about, he wasn't a bigot. And I think this is what these folks target. They're trying to target other white folk in America with different backgrounds that are not outright bigots. You see what I'm saying? You see what I mean? They know that these people are stopping them from creating a pure white bigoted country, which the U.S. shouldn't be, never was. It was a bigoted, but pure white. U.S. never been pure white. America has never been pure white. That's one thing you need to understand. And not that should even be a goal. And not that that's, if you have a country that just happens to have ethnic people that are white, and that's not necessarily bad either, but this ain't America. That wouldn't be what you're talking about in America. You see what I mean? And it seems like they're trying to fabricate it in this way, but let me let them talk some more, man. This is crazy.
Christian Zionists. Like, what is that?
Right.
And I can just say for myself, I dislike them more than anybody. Because what? Because it's Christian heresy, and I'm offended by that as a Christian.
Anyway, this is interesting. So Tucker Carlson he's a Christian. You heard him say that, right? So let me see. Yeah.
If Dave Rubin called me tonight, which he would never do, though he has my cell, and said, I'm really sorry I called you Hitler, like I didn't mean it.
Too much of this is goddamn about him. Okay, I didn't know Nick Fuentes was this much of a anti-Semite, because he just like Tucker Carlson can't even change the topic. Every position he takes is back to, I didn't know he was mad because I said Hitler, or Jews this and Jews that. It's like, God damn, man. It's like this is almost worse than it for him. I see now for Nick Fuentes, it's the Jews, right? Yeah, in this conversation. For JD Vance, it's the immigrants, it's the Mexicans, it's the immigrants, right? They have all of these groups of people they don't like, and it's like, damn, man, don't you know a lot of these people been a part of the U.S. fabric the entire time? What's it going to be next? You don't like Chinese people? Okay, so Chinese people, ethnic groups never lived in the United States in the turn of the century. They were there either. Were we supposed to just reimagine the U.S.? It's like everything just being reimagined. It's scary. But in any case, let's listen to some of Peter Thiel. Now, this is the guy that backed up Trump, but he's also really a dude that, if you ask me, he's looking, JD Vance is his guy. In other words, he did a lot for JD Vance, to get JD Vance in position to be the vice president. So, yeah, let's see here.
Neither is Donald Trump. He is a builder, and it's time to rebuild America. Where I work in Silicon Valley, it's hard to see where America has gone wrong. My industry has made a lot of progress in computers and in software, and of course, it's made a lot of money. But Silicon Valley is a small place. Drive out to Sacramento or even across the bridge to Oakland, and you won't see the same prosperity. That's just how small it is. Across the country, wages are flat. Americans get paid less today than 10 years ago, but healthcare and college tuition cost more every year. Meanwhile, Wall Street bankers inflate bubbles in everything from government bonds.
He sounds pretty correct, right? But what the hell did he vote for Trump for then? That's crazy. Why did he back Trump? Everything he says is what Trump's doing.
To Hillary Clinton's speaking fees.
Oh, they mad at Hillary Clinton for taking a speaking fee. That's crazy. Now, this is where I think it gets really interesting, because to me, it sounds really misogynistic to kind of go after Hillary Clinton, and I just wonder, like, where do they meet? Now, keep in mind, Peter Thiel is in the Epstein files. This guy right here is in the Epstein files. And I'm starting to think that everyone that they hate is someone that's not in the Epstein files, pretty much. I mean, they hate Clinton, but you haven't really heard them hate Clinton anytime lately. Pretty much they decided to say, fuck that. But if there was anyone else, they would be going after them, if they were in the Epstein files. And Hillary Clinton wasn't in the Epstein files, but yet they're going after her. These guys make way more money than Hillary Clinton for anything. And listen to them going after her. And there's very few women that have ever been that high up in government. You see what I'm saying? In the United States of America, this is a new thing of us having opportunity for women. To be honest, this is a new thing in the U.S. We're behind most other Western nations and behind many other nations too. I mean, we're behind in a lot, but I mean, to hear him talk about Hillary Clinton, I wonder, like, why? What is it that made her be like the biggest criminal to mention inside of this speech? Like, couldn't he have just said, you know what? There's so few women in government that have been given the opportunity to serve in government that let's just bypass her, because there's plenty of men we could talk about, but this guy doesn't.
Our economy is broken. If you're watching me right now, you understand this better than any politician in Washington, D.C.
He says the economy's broken, and he's a PayPal dude. You know what I'm saying? Founder of PayPal.
And this.
How is it broken when they made more money than ever? These guys. But so I guess the gist of this is that he's talking to the poor right wingers, saying we're going to deliver you justice, and here's what it's going to look like. This economy you won't have to worry about. We see your workers, this is too expensive, you're not getting paid enough. This is literally what he ran. He's pumping these ideas, and when they got in power, they all did the exact opposite. Even Peter Thiel. Look,
this isn't the dream we looked forward to. Back when my parents came to America looking for that dream, they found it right here.
Did you hear that? Back when my family came to America, they found it. So let me see. Is Peter Thiel's family immigrants? I just gotta ask. Okay. It says Peter Thiel was born in Frankfurt, West Germany. So his family, he was born. What the fuck is he talking about when his family came here? Hold on, let me just play this. Let me play this for people to hear it.
Yes, Peter Thiel's family are immigrants. Here's the breakdown. Peter Thiel was born in Frankfurt, West Germany, on October 11, 1967. He moved to the United States as a child and grew up in California. His parents were German citizens, so his move to the US made him an immigrant. Summary: Peter Thiel himself is a German-born immigrant to the US. His family immigrated from Germany, making them a recent immigrant family, first generation in the US. If you want, I can also outline his family background and ancestry in more detail.
Okay, so keep that in mind when we listen to him. So he migrated to the U.S. and he's frustrated about it. Yet he's made more money than ever in the U.S. Okay, so let's take it from there.
Here in Cleveland, isn't the dream we looked for. Right now, you understand this better than any politician in Washington, D.C. And you know, this isn't the dream we looked forward to. Back when my parents came to America looking for that dream, they found it right here in Cleveland.
Cleveland? Cleveland? They found it in Cleveland? That's interesting. Let me see something here. What year did he say? Hold on.
Here, my parents came to America looking for that dream. They found it right here in Cleveland.
So let's say 60 years ago, right? Something like that. When did his family migrate to Cleveland? Let me see something here. Okay, they migrated to Cleveland and what does it say? 1967. 1967. This is 1 year before Malcolm X was murdered. Is that it? Or Martin Luther King? Hold on. Let me see here. Okay. All right. So let me let that play some more now.
They brought me here as a 1-year-old, and this is where I became an American. Opportunity was everywhere. My dad studied engineering at Case Western Reserve University.
Look, he said opportunity was everywhere. Damn, he just skipped over he skipped over the civil rights. That's important to know. So opportunity was everywhere. Wow. Opportunity was everywhere. Okay. All right. I guess it was for him.
Just down the road from where we are now. Because in 1968, the world's high-tech capital wasn't just one city. All of America was high-tech. It's hard to remember this, but our government was once high-tech too. When I moved to Cleveland, defense research was laying the foundations for the internet. The Apollo program was just about to put a man on the moon, and it was Neil Armstrong from right here in Ohio. The future felt limitless. But today, our government is broken. Our nuclear bases still use floppy disks. Our newest fighter jets can't even fly in the rain. And it would be kind to say the government software works poorly, because much of the time it doesn't even work at all. That is a staggering decline for the country that completed the Manhattan Project. We don't accept such incompetence in Silicon Valley, and we must not accept it from our government. Instead of going to Mars, we have invaded the Middle East. We don't need to see Hillary Clinton's deleted emails. Her incompetence is in plain sight. She pushed.
Okay, so he's obviously going after Hillary because this was then, right, when Trump was running against Hillary, I guess. But let's take a listen to here. He's been criticized as being somewhat anti-democratic, but let me hear what it says here. Let me see something.
Peter Thiel has faced criticism for being anti-democratic or skeptical of democratic norms. Here's a careful overview. 1. Academic and media criticism. Scholars and journalists often cite Thiel's 2009 Stanford speech where he said, open quote, "I no longer believe that freedom and democracy are compatible." Close quote. Critics interpret this as a rejection of majoritarian democracy. Articles in publications like the New York Times, The Guardian, and The Atlantic have described him as hostile to democratic norms, emphasizing his support for elitist, technocratic decision-making. Political criticism. Thiel's support for Donald Trump in 2016, including funding efforts to challenge traditional political processes, led some commentators to accuse him of favoring strong anti-establishment leadership over democratic consensus. His involvement in controversial political donations, e.g. anti-establishment candidates in primaries, is sometimes framed as undermining democratic institutions. Think tanks and intellectual critiques. Political analysts note that Thiel's views align with a libertarian-leaning skepticism of popular governance, emphasizing innovation, elites, and long-term planning over short-term voter preferences. Critics argue that this minimizes the role of ordinary citizens in shaping policy, which is central to democracy. Summary. Thiel has explicitly questioned the compatibility of democracy with freedom. He has faced criticism in media, academia, and politics for being anti-democratic in philosophy and practice. Most interpretations frame him as anti-majoritarian or elitist, rather than violently opposed to all democratic institutions. If you like, I can make a list of specific articles and commentators who have called Thiel anti-democratic, with quotes and sources, so you can see the context clearly. Do you want me to do that?
All right, so let me see here. I just want to find that speech where he says, you know, a lot of these folks tend to have the same theme, you know, which is like they have an issue with people having a vote, you know. Look at this. Hold on, let's go here.
The Antichrist probably presents as a great humanitarian, as a great, as an extremely great philanthropist, as an effective altruist. You know, all of those kinds of things, and these things are not, you know, simply anti-Christian, but it is always when they get overly combined with state power that something is very wrong. You know, there are sort of ways Christ wants to unify the world. You have the parable of the Good Samaritan, where, you know, you should take care of people even if you're not related to them, and it's good to act like the Good Samaritan and to take care of people who are not just in your family or tribe or country. But then if you force everyone to be a Good Samaritan and you force a borderless world, it's somehow adjacent. Somehow it's an intensification, but it's somehow also very much the opposite. The Antichrist probably.
The Antichrist. So that is weird how he just calls democracy and laws that work for everyone, laws that are for everybody, Antichrist, to force people. I mean, and again, it's this kind of spin on Christian ideology. I'm not quite getting it, but hold on. Let me see here. Peter Thiel. Let me see something here. Didn't he say this in a particular speech? Hold on. Listen to this. This is weird.
From a Christian perspective.
He's talking as a Christian? And this dude's a scientist?
I think people always make a mistake of trying to put Christ into some sort of political agenda. If you try to do that's the most straightforward way to misinterpret Christianity. If anything, Christ was extremely skeptical of politics. When Christ said that he was the Son of God, on one level, this is some theological, metaphysical statement, but on another level, it's an anti-political statement because Augustus was the son of Caesar. Caesar was divinized after his death, and the official son of God was Augustus Caesar. And so when Christ said that he was the Son of God, he was really saying that the emperor was not the Son of God. He did not believe that the political order was divinely ordained. From a Christian perspective, I think people always...
Okay, so is he a Christian? Is Peter Thiel a Christian? I'm curious about that. Let me see something here.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it.
Hold on. Let me go back. Is Peter Thiel, is he claiming to be a Christian or what? pushing for a tech control country. The German with New Zealand citizenship, living in South America with his lover, who he met when he was a kid at 15. Damn, I didn't know all of that. Thanks for your comment. I didn't know that. Let me see here. I think it says, let me just grab one of his speeches here. It says Peter Thiel at, what was it, Stanford University? Peter Thiel. Stanford University. In any case, this is the guy behind JD Vance, essentially, right? And he's looking for, these guys got this 10% big, beautiful bill tax break. And what the heck? Oh, here it is. Peter. I messed that up. Peter Thiel. Stanford University. Yeah. And they're looking to essentially, he's getting loads of public dollars, Peter Thiel. So all of you guys, everyone that pays taxes to the US government, federal taxes, he's getting a piece of your check when you go to work. It's just good to know who these people are. What is this? Thiel and Harvard? No, I don't want to pick one too inflammatory, but it says Stanford. Here we go. Stanford University. But I want to get one that is a little controversial so people can hear. Here it is. In the end of the future. Let me see. What is this? I just want to get one so people can get an idea of some of his talking points. Yeah.
Which still thrives, and you heard from the current
come to terms with all these ways that the university as a place where we search for truth, where there's a certain amount of freedom, civility.
Okay, classic liberalism initiative. All right, so this is what I wanted to see. I think he's going to break down what his views are in liberalism. Although he says he's changed here and there, but
a certain canon is being threatened by this sort of amorphous thing that's somehow the anti-university. That is, the postmodern multiversity. That is maybe, it's somehow in some parts nihilistic, in some parts relativistic, in some parts total.
Now, you heard Elon Musk yesterday when we were reviewing Elon Musk's comments, right? On what's this podcast, the Joe Rogan show? He says similar things, nihilistic. He's literally calling the society that we live in and people that pay his taxes. He's referring to people this way.
Totalitarian, and it probably would take postmodern, the anti-university. That is, the postmodern multiversity. That is maybe, it's somehow in some parts nihilistic, in some parts relativistic, in some parts totalitarian, and it probably would take, more time than I have to unpack all of those paradoxes. And then of course it's the problem of the university in the larger context of the questions of classical liberalism, and which seems to be failing and in trouble in a lot of different ways, and that one should also think about. I've been involved in these campus wars, culture wars debates for something like 35 years. We started the Stanford, and I'll just recount one story from 35 or so years ago. Around the time we started the Stanford Review in 1987, the live issue was the debate about Western culture, the freshman core curriculum program, and it was going to be sort of phased out. The 88-89 school year was the first year where the first of the new experimental culture ideas and values was the first program to replace Western culture. It's framed as multicultural, and I thought we should do an expose on this sort of the first class. And it was sort of, a tendentious Marxist professor. It was not really about non-Western cultures. It was all sort of these various anti-Western writers of one sort or another. And so I went to the Stanford bookstore and just started reading through the books. And of course, I was sort of man with a hammer, tries to find a nail everywhere, and was just trying to find the most tendentious things. There were, and they all were on different dimensions. But then I finally stumbled on one book that was just the perfect book that encapsulated everything that was preposterous about it. It was I, Rigoberta Menchú, and it was a set of interviews with this sort of Guatemalan peasant Indian woman who had been oppressed in every vector of oppression. It was like a perfect pastiche. It was she was oppressed as poor, and as there was a racial war, and there was a war, and she was an orphan, and on down the line. And then you have these sort of chapters. Rigoberta renounces marriage and motherhood. Rigoberta makes plans for the May Day parade. So it has sort of a somewhat communist undercurrent. And as so many of these debates, the Western culture debate was somehow very important. It was on one level about this freshman course at one elite university, Stanford. But then in some sense it was a debate about our whole culture, and so it sort of kicked up all these bigger things. And as a sort of 20-year-old senior, I managed to convince the editors of the Wall Street Journal.
Let me speed this up real quick.
Humanities, we all know, are ridiculous. STEM, but if STEM is ridiculous, there is just nothing left at all. And this is the idea that.
Let me bring that back.
And there is sort of some way that we have to always ask this question about, the sciences and the technologies, how they are doing. And the version of the question that I have come to ask over the last 15 years about, is the universal question is about the progress of all these things. How fast are science and technology as a whole progressing? Is the sort of propaganda, the STEM propaganda, accurate? That we have just sort of exponentiating
STEM, he's talking about stem cells, right?
Progress, runaway progress. Things are getting sort of, it's just dizzying how fast things are improving. Or is it perhaps quite the opposite? And so if one could show that the science and technology areas are actually pretty weak, that the so-called crown jewels of STEM are not actually delivering the goods, this strikes me as a decisive, crushing blow. It's like, humanities, we all know, are ridiculous. STEM, but if STEM is ridiculous, there is just nothing left at all. And this is the idea that I've explored in sort of a variety of formats over the last 15 years. There's sort of a, it's very, let me say, it is very hard to evaluate this stuff in general, because one of the other problems of the postmodern university is that it's extremely compartmentalized, it's extremely specialized, and you're supposed to only be able to comment on these things after half a lifetime of study. And so we have ever narrower sets of guardians guarding themselves, to use the sort of corrupt Platonic metaphor. So you have the string theory people telling us how wonderful string theory people are and how everybody else just has bad math genes and can't talk about it. We have the cancer researchers promising us that they will cure cancer in 5 years, which they've been doing for the last 50. We have on and on in all these sort of hyper specialized areas. And then the question is, how much progress is actually happening? The sort of indirect intuitions I have on where it seems very, very slowed are things like, if you look at things like the economy, the standards of living among younger people, the younger generation doesn't seem to be doing better than their parents. This is sort of very odd in a sort of context of massive generalized progress. There's sort of a question, how big are the breakthroughs that are really happening? There's the definition of technology. We say technology is the thing that is changing. And in, let's say, the 1960s, technology meant computers, but also rockets and supersonic aviation and the green revolution, agriculture.
This is 2 years ago.
And underwater cities and new medicines. It was like a lot of things. And when we use technology today, it just means information technology. And I think that's kind of a tell that we have a narrow cone of progress around the world of bits, computers, internet, mobile internet. It's generated some great companies, but it's not quite been enough to take our civilization to the next level. We had a tagline on my venture capital site. They promised us flying cars, and all we got was 140 characters. Not an anti-Twitter argument, not an argument against Twitter as a company. It can work as a company. It can work,
Let me skip here. I'm going to go to where the questions are.
studying philosophy and political science here at Stanford, read for the review. So my question is, there's this quote I remember, I think it's from Adorno, Theodore Adorno, or maybe some like anti-colonial scholar commenting on him, something like that. It goes, the only way to gain progress is to stop talking about it. And his argument, essentially, if I recall correctly, is that the more we talk about progress, the more it gives leeway to sort of totalitarian, colonialist structures, imperialist structures that allow you to oppress people who are behind, right? It's like the West is better or more farther in progress than the East or something like that. If we sort of invert that argument, it seems like the language of progress in many ways motivates the DEI officers to progress by, perhaps expanding access of education to minorities. We're learning new things about equity and fair, freedom, and equal, all these values which we didn't have before. Therefore, we should impose them on the sort of loser reactionaries who are convening at a conference, talk about academic freedom. So basically, my question is, why not adopt this sort of motto of we will continue to progress and pursue progress, but we frame it all in a language of return? The same way sort of a lot of, I think, religious reactionaries like myself and others on the Stanford are trying to do. So we still want progress, but we don't sound like we do.
I'm somewhat confused by exactly what that means, but I would agree with you that there's something about progress that's been hijacked. We still have people who call themselves progressives. It's much less clear how you quantify what they are progressing on, and then if we frame it in terms of science, technology, per capita GDP, number of nuclear power plants.
Basically, it sounds like who judges progress? Who's judging progress? Who gets to judge what progress is, essentially? But let me just
try to quantify these things. It seems like we're not actually that progressive on on a lot of dimensions. And I think one way, I know this is sort of just a narrow political framing, but one way to describe the decline away from progress that which I think still had this more general sense of not just a political.
Right. And I see where this is going, because they're claiming that diversity is a decline from progress, or DEI is a decline from progress, right? I mean,
political word, but also a science word and also a societal word in the 1930s, 1950s, 60s.
If you ask the right, while the GDP was in the U.S. was at its highest ever, progress wasn't happening. It was decline. Under Biden, it was total decline, right? Right now, they got the president that these guys, I mean, just keep this in mind. All of these people that we've reviewed, they're the ones who supported Trump. And what's your life like now? And they all claim to be experts on progress and on what the problems are. And look at shit now. This is, that's the conversation here that we're actually having. Although when I listen to this guy, it's really hard to get him to say some shit flat out. But I have some quotes here that are more disturbing. So let me just play these quotes so people can get more of an idea, because I'm seeing Elon Musk is a little more straightforward than Peter Thiel. But when you look at what they're doing, they're borrowing from each other. Number one, social media, information technology, they're actually using algorithms and things like this to get people to believe certain kind of things. So you see one kind of commentary 100 times more than you see another type of commentary, or, the space is being taken up by the right, across the internet, right? And across media, owning companies, all of this. And these aren't the only two, but the cumulative effect of it all has basically, you could say, changed how people see reality. They literally see destruction as progress and progress as destruction.
Here's a report on some of Peter Thiel's most controversial statements, along with references and direct URLs so you can check the sources yourself. 1. I no longer believe that freedom and democracy are compatible. In his 2009 essay, The Education of a Libertarian, published at Cato Institute's Cato Unbound, Thiel wrote, open quote, "Most importantly, I no longer believe that freedom and democracy are compatible." Cato Unbound URL, www.catounbound.org/2009-04/Thiel/education-libertarian. Cato Unbound. This statement has been widely cited as evidence of his skepticism toward majoritarian democracy. AZ quotes, additional context, he argues that democratic majorities may not produce outcomes aligned with the kind of freedom he values. Hoover Institution, close quote. Critique of capitalist democracy and the extension of the franchise. Thiel wrote, open quote, "Since 1920, the vast increase in welfare beneficiaries and the extension of the franchise to women, two constituencies that are notoriously tough for libertarians, have rendered the notion of capitalist democracy into an oxymoron." endwikiquote.org. The statement appears in his essay and is discussed by critics as implying that expanding voting rights and social welfare undermine capitalism. The Guardian, URL for the essay, same as above. https://unbound.org/2009-44/Thiel/education-libertarian, Cato Unbound. Close quote. 3. Criticism of American democracy, describing U.S. political system as mislabeled. In a 2015 interview with the Washington Post, Thiel said, open quote, "Calling our society a democracy is very misleading. We're not a republic. We're not a constitutional republic. We live in a state that's dominated by these technocratic agencies." The Washington Post, URL, http://news/the/switch/w50/// Why PayPal co-founder Peter Thiel thinks the American democracy is dead. The Washington Post. This statement indicates his belief that the U.S. system is less democratic than commonly assumed and more technocratic or agency-driven. Close quote. Suggestion that corporate-style or single decision-maker governance may be preferable to mass democracy. In a conversation transcript published by the Hoover Institution, Thiel states, open quote, "I think there is evidence that a democratic society, once established, destroys a free economy." Hoover Institution, URL www.hoover.org/research/Peter Thiel transcript. Hoover Institution. This has been interpreted by commentators as advocating more centralized, efficient governance rather than broad democratic participation. Time, close quote. Hajna 5. Wider perception and commentary on Thiel's anti-democracy leanings. Several analyses and profiles describe Thiel's thinking and actions as hostile or skeptical toward liberal democracy. For example, an article in Time states, open quote, he talks about how companies are better run than governments because they have a single decision maker, a dictator, basically. He is hostile to the idea of democracy. Time, URL/time.com/
Okay, that was more recent. That's 2021.
Thiel Power Biography, The Contrarians. Time, also an article in The Guardian, notes his remarks on women's suffrage and welfare. In 2009, for example, he published an essay lamenting that women being given the right to vote had dealt a blow to libertarianism. The Guardian. www.guardian.com's comment it is free /2024/03's Peter Thiel Steroid Olympics Enhanced Games Patriarchy, The Guardian. Close quote. Summary table, statement, source, context, URL. I no longer believe that freedom and democracy are compatible. Essay 2009.catounbound.org/2009/4 education-libertarian. Critique of franchise extension and welfare versus capitalist democracy. Same essay, same as above.
All right,
U.S.
so
not truly a democracy, dominated by...
Now, people got a chance to hear how some of his ideas have maybe morphed or, changed in time. Who knows? I mean, if you think it's changed, I don't know. I see a little bit of change. I don't know how much that has to do with positioning himself, like trying to, now that they come out of the closet and essentially support Trump. But keep in mind, they talk a good game. I mean, and they definitely roll out a good plan. Like this shit with MAGA and these oligarchs, right? They rolled out a good plan. It was very, very aggressive. But it seems like it's bullshit. To me, I mean, one thing I do notice that they lean on heavily is this idea of one, like a God figure. They all seem to be racing for that. It's almost like a bunch of slave masters that one of them know that somebody can be on the top, and they're all like, it's kind of like they came together, attracted by that power, and they all have, because they all want power, they all have this love affair with the one, the dictator, and at the same time they talk to poor people about God, which is another one person. You know, this idea that one individual makes everything else easy. You don't need to hear from people. You just need that one figure that knows everything to deliver it to everybody else. That's the opposite of democracy, by the way, you know. And no matter how he seems to hide his views a little better, there's some misogynistic shit in there too. Like you heard it, like this guy, and they call it progress, but he doesn't seem to think that women are equal. And I find that very suspicious, like, because he does. I had a hard time figuring out whether he's the Christian that he's talking about. Like, let me know. Is Peter Thiel a Christian? Is he a Christian? Does he speak a lot about Christian theology? How it's impacted his life? Let me know. Because I don't know a lot about him, but I do know one thing. He was definitely one of the cats pushing the libertarianism, right? And that is scary enough. I hear Elon Musk, you know, his views often seem to be libertarian. Hold on, let me see here. Smooth said, Are Peter Thiel and Elon fighting for daddy's attention? They look like they are. As a matter of fact, from what I hear, Elon seems like, right, this kind of goes along with what I was saying there about this competition. Elon seems to be upset that he's not getting big money, but I don't know. I heard a lot of Jeff Bezos is now getting the money that Elon Musk thought he was going to get through these government grants. All of these cats are competing over taxpayer dollars. That means you, the people that are on SNAP, you pay taxes too. The people that are not, the people that are on Medicare and Medicaid, you pay taxes too. You do. You still pay taxes, right? And the flip of it is that this, with the Medicare and the Medicaid, you pay money that you may not even use towards any health care. You see what I mean? Like, you never know until you need it. And all of a sudden, when you don't have a job and you can't have no money, then they're like, oops, sorry, we can't support you. You know, but really, a lot of people pay into that shit, that fund, and they never get to use it. You know, I don't understand that about the U.S. It's not like that in the EU. Everybody's covered from the start. And as soon as you start working, you pay into the system. But in the U.S., it's like you working, you signing up, but you might not get it. That shit is totally backwards. Let me see here. Peter Thiel is praised. Oh, he praised Curtis Yarvin also? Okay, damn. But, yeah. They seem like, for me, it seems like they're on a path towards human beings are going to start becoming fuel for their endeavors, like for the machine. Like, human beings might be used, their blood might be used to fuel these damn machines. This is what I get when I listen to them talk. I mean, of course, they're not so blatant about it, and of course, different ones of them chime in differently on different aspects of it. But that's where I see the Rubicon for these cats. It looks like a lot of bullshit, yo. To be honest with you, it looks like a lot of bullshit to me. Let me take this back down now. Let me see something. What is it? You pull this one back up. Take this one down. Go back. Now let me hear a little bit more, see if let me try to pick one more of Peter Thiel and then see what it does. 2 seconds here. Peter Thiel, competition is competition is for losers. Right. He's got these ideas about why we stopped progressing. These are the cats that are getting your money. And they don't see you as being a good contributor, although you're actually paying for this shit. That's what I find the most ironic. It's a very slick way to, I guess, gaslight people. You talking down to the same people that are giving you money, right? It's like a preacher. You know, I hate to say that. I hope I don't that offended anybody, but it's like you're giving a person who's like the middleman, but who's the praise going to? You see what I mean? Like, is the praise going to the people that's giving the money, or is the praise going to someone else, somewhere else? And it seems like in this case, it's going to them, the praise, like not to the people that are funding it. And I just think that's really, 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 really weird. Now, let me see here. What the hell is this? Hold on. Let me see. Elon Musk. Let me see here. I'm going to try one more thing real quick before I'm out. Elon Musk and Peter Thiel. Let me see here. Oh, I wrote, what the hell is wrong with me? There we go. Hope I spelled that right. Peter Thiel's favorite Elon Musk metaphor? Left-wing zombie establishment? What the hell? Okay, bluffing about climate change. This is another one. Let me just review. No, that's Blaze TV. No. Okay, wait a second. Peter Thiel versus Gawker Jeff Bezos. Okay. Peter Thiel and 0-1 to 1. Okay. AI, Mars, and immortality. I can't even click that bullshit. Immortality. But he's working towards. There was something about stem cells too that he worked on or something. Where is they working on some immortality drug or something? Peter Thiel on anti-classical liberalism. Sounds goddamn boring, but matter of fact, should I just pull this one up? Was it Peter Thiel on the portal? What is this? You are not a lot of host goes quiet when Peter Thiel turns Elon Musk. Okay. Let me see something here. I just want to see what his comment would be about
how to kill
Elon
all
Musk.
mosquitoes in the area in just
2 seconds. Where is that at? Is that here? Okay, yeah, you guys can see it. All right, so let me see. Let's turn this off.
Overdetermined why he shifted or why you shifted or some of these other people did.
I didn't shift, Peter. Everyone else just moved.
Everyone, but
everyone feels that way, of course.
But my friend Peter Thiel, former COO. He was the former co-founder of PayPal with Elon Musk. And then, of course, he was the first guy. I think he wrote like a $200,000 or $250,000 check.
Right. So that's important because obviously they know a lot about each other and they might share right out the gate a lot of the same philosophy, a lot of the same understandings about the U.S. And what they can do to get more out of the United States taxpayer. Just the fact that they already were partners.
To Zuckerberg for Facebook, and obviously has sort of become ubiquitous tech billionaire who is on the more conservative libertarian side of things. So he's been a sort of outsider in all of the tech lunacy of the last decade or so. He went on Barry Weiss's podcast and she asked him about Elon's shift to the right. And I thought Peter's answer here not only was quite good, but it explains why so many people broke towards Trump just in the last 2 weeks.
All right, let's hear.
I've known Elon since 2000, 24, almost 25 years. And, he was never doctrinaire, but for the first 20 years, he was left of center. Tesla was a clean energy electric vehicle company. The Republicans were these people who didn't believe in climate change. And so it was sort of naturally much more comfortable in sort of deep blue democratic California. And then at some point, Elon shifted, and it's overdetermined why he shifted or why you shifted or some of these other people did.
I didn't shift, Peter. Everyone else just moved.
But
everyone feels that way, of course.
But I know these things are overdetermined, but I keep thinking part of it is just this sort of straitjacket is not what you all signed up for. This intellectual straitjacket where you're not allowed to have ideas. Even if you agree with 80%, it's never enough. You have to be 100%.
So that's Peter, as always, explaining things like only he can. And that is the point. Elon should not, in a normal system, Elon Musk should not be teamed up with Donald Trump on the Republican side of things. In a normal system, if we were just to rewind 30 years, Donald Trump probably would not be a Republican himself. But you guys went crazy with this ideological rigidity and this insane desire to destroy the country and all of the goodness that this country has given to generations.
Wow. So you see, wow, this is regardless of whether people agree with this or not, this is what they're feeling and this is what they're selling. This idea that equality is, you pushed the bear when you talked about anti-discrimination. When you talked about civil rights, you pushed, you poked the bear when you talked about civil rights. When you talk about this thing like just describing the Confederate flag as being like anti-US, right? Anti-union, anti-American, right? You pushing the flag, calling calling Confederates racist is pushing the bear. Women's rights is pushing the bear. Yo, this stuff is really sad to see, but it's sad to see how many people. I mean, I've gotten I have tough skin, so at this point in my life, because I'm 55, right? So I expect that there's going to be racist. I expect that there's going to be bigots that focus on your color. I expect that. You know what I'm saying? I don't necessarily expect every person to come with that. No, that's not what I'm saying. But I expect to see it and hear it sometimes. You see what I mean? Here and there, right? It's just a part of life that those people exist, and you can't change everybody, and you can't stop ignorant from being ignorant. Basically, it's a choice, right? But where I'm really shocked is where a lot of these people don't know how oppressed women have been in the United States and how they don't connect with it at all. Like that, the misogyny in a lot of these folks, this is what really gets me, like largely. Like I get scared when I hear that because I'm used to hearing people I'm used to hearing anti-blackness, you could say. This anti-women shit, I would have never imagined. I would never imagine it being in the United States. Call me a fool. I just really didn't know it was that goddamn deep. But apparently it is, because people in suits are, that are misogynistic as hell, or nice calm speakers, going on podcasts, are misogynistic as hell, and they don't even realize it. I'm sure this dude doesn't realize it, right? I hope he doesn't. What's the name of his podcast, by the way? The Rubin Report. I don't know, but what I just heard from this guy sounded a bit misogynistic. I don't think he knows it. I don't think he realized it, but that's what I picked up on myself. Right. Regardless of what he was saying, I don't know if it's maybe I'm wrong, but he sounded very misogynistic, because just the concept, he might relate it to something else like this, looking for discrimination, pushing the buttons. That's what I heard him say, like talking about discrimination. He didn't say it verbatim, but that's what I got out of his comment. Like talking about rights is like you went too far. That's anti-American. Now you're oppressing people. Yo, man, there's loads of people in the United States of America that you've never even begun to really understand how oppressive you have been. You see what I mean? And it's not fair that you're supposed to tell Americans that shut up, you can't talk about this now. Like, you can't acknowledge your own reality, first of all, you can't acknowledge the history that you come from, but you also can't even acknowledge that the legacy still affects people. That one right there. If you look, as a black man, I'm used to people always trying to deny, black Americans, African Americans, or whatever we want to call it, contribution to the United States of America. I'm always used to us being present and people denying our presence, and I always looked at it as some shit that's out there, way outside of where I come from in another part of the U.S. I've never heard it to my face, and now I'm seeing people like this show up from out there who actually have these ideas. But what kills me the most is that they don't even acknowledge women. Women's suffrage. You heard this several times. Like, they think it's bullshit. Women in the United States couldn't own property. They were basically property under this coverture law shit. They couldn't own anything. They were literally the property of men, essentially. Like, and for long periods of time until the 14th Amendment. And these guys don't even understand that is like a problem. Like, they don't understand there's a legacy of that. Like, I could never imagine they could look at another woman that comes from the same ethnic tribe as them, the same color as them, same eyes, same hair texture, same name, and yet they can't realize that those women were oppressed too. That one, and they do it wearing a suit. And talking nice. Like, that just blows my goddamn mind, That blows my mind. I don't get it. Let me go in the chat for a second. Hold on. Let me see here. Reagan started it. One of the cats that Peter Thiel, no, Nick Fuentes talked about was actually a Reagan dude, right? The guy who Nick Fuentes said inspired him. That was a Reagan dude, like, straight up. Who was that who said that? That was Jesse. All right. And then Jesse also said the black community built America. They made our clothes, food, homes, built our cities, raised our children. Black Americans contribute a lot. I don't like to leave people out myself when I speak anymore, just because I realize how, right now in this time period, anyone could try to use that statement or may feel it differently. So I try to acknowledge everybody's contributions, right? But I think, yes, we had to do our if you're talking about African American ancestry in the U.S., they had to do all the work, especially in the Confederate states. They had to do all the goddamn work, but also in the other, slavery was all across the country legal. You see what I mean? So they were, making all kinds of shit. I mean, Garrett Morgan, traffic light. Madam C.J. Walker, straightening comb. Who else? Let me see something. Who made the damn, I can't believe I'm quoting a KRS song, but who was it who made the washing machine? It was also an African American, Black American made the washing machine, invented the washing machine because he had to wash the goddamn clothes. I mean, a lot of inventions came out of the fact that we had to do labor. We had to build houses. We had to build a damn slave master's house. Literally, you have to have the craftsmanship to do the work, right? It wasn't all just picking cotton, right? It definitely wasn't that. I mean, you had to do other skills. You had to have other trade skills also. But, let me see who else is in the chat. I appreciate y'all coming out too for this small conversation. I can see it's not a lot of folks in the who's listening today. Maybe just 100 or so, but at a time, I don't know, a couple thousand or whatever. But that's all good. I still wanted to talk about this a little bit. Supreme Court, only black women, like only one in the history of the country. And these guys are like, hey, don't fucking talk about discrimination. Like, they get angry when you just say, and think about this. Under these guys' leadership, there's never been one woman president. Not one. And they think talking about discrimination is too much. You poking the bear. it's just, that's what in their own way, they all come together and say this in different ways. They all start on the outskirts and then they inch their way into saying the same damn thing. It's crazy. Yeah, a lot of folks made America what it is today. That's what I try to, that's how I look at it, because I do know a lot myself, right? But you know, I understand also when someone says Black Americans built shit, because we're the group that had to, everything that we did, we weren't allowed to get any credit for. You see what I'm saying? Not economic credit, not anything. You see what I mean? And when that happens generation after generation after generation after generation, you don't have property to give to your kids. You see what I mean? You don't have the same, you have a parallel society at that point. You don't have a place where you're getting compensated for your contribution, for your just equal work. And so that's a paradox in itself. You see what I mean? So I don't see why people that know that history would be offended by that comment, you know, but again, I try to walk on the safe side myself. Cause I'm just on that lately in my life. Like, I try to make sure verbally I acknowledge as many people as possible, so jerks like this don't all of a sudden, you know, get confused, because they seem very confused, yo. Let me see here. Okay, Kevin said, so why is it the people who benefited from black labor in the South seems to have so much hate? Bro, Kevin, I have no fucking idea. You know, I think it's projection, to be honest. I think they know inside, and the guilt makes them hate. It's just the guilt that's making them hate, bro. Like, that's what I think. Personally, you know, I think it's a tactic. You know, hate is like in a way, it sounds different. It sounds a little, in terms of ignoring what the issue is, it's proactive. You know what I'm saying? If I can hate these people, I don't have to deal with the reality. You know, I don't have to do anything else. I don't have to acknowledge shit if I can hate them. So, you know, that's what I think it is somewhat, you know, some little tactic. RG Lord, yep. The master tools to dismantle the master's house. I mean, you know, let me see here. Who else is this? This is Sleechy. Is that Sleechy? Is it? Did I say that right? Lesh. Okay, let me see here. McCarthy Sunset LTD, the black character, says numbers are the black man's friend. Yo, yeah, indeed, numbers are. You know, I would never look. You know, slaves built the damn Capitol building. They weren't the only ones, but listen, if you just research it, you will find out that it's more black Americans building the Capitol building than a lot of other ethnic groups, period. Right now. And also because they had problems. This is the situation the U.S. was in. They needed masons, skilled workers to build the Capitol. And they missed them. They couldn't have them. But one group that they heavily relied on was slaves. And also there was a few free, let me see, I can look that up. But if I'm correct, there was very few. No, that's at a later period. People that worked on the building later. But initially it was a lot of free labor, slave labor. And these were skilled people with skills, right? Now, building skills, right? It's not the first building they worked on, but they were they were missing skilled laborers so much that they were trying to import them from Europe, but couldn't get them. I'm not bullshitting you. They couldn't get enough. And so a lot of African Americans from Maryland, Virginia, because, you know, at that time, D.C. is in the middle of Maryland, Virginia. It wasn't quite maybe fully D.C. yet. In terms of how big it was in the population, I believe something like this. So they had to pull in slave labor from next door, from across the river, right? And north and south, right? Now, a lot of people don't know that loads of African Americans literally built those buildings. And I think that's pretty much, when you want to look at the construction of the United States, that's a safe way to go. Sure, there's other people that contributed to building the building, but you need to really know a massive amount of that force was actually black Americans. And that is symbolic of the entire country when you're talking about building that whole time period. If major projects had to get built, who do you think was building it? Who do you think was building it? But not exclusively though, but I'm just saying, you know. And so when I see these people have so much hate, I just think it's the easy route, taking the easy route, man. I just think it's like hate is a way you can avoid doing anything else. And that's kind of sad. That's kind of sad because that's kind of like a chicken shit way out of it. You know what I'm saying? A chicken shit would go that way. And all people don't make that same move, you know? And I got to tell you, look, as an African American, as a black American, right? I live in Copenhagen, Denmark. I was down in a part of town that they call Sluserholmen. I was down there kicking back, looking around, right? And I don't work too far from there, right? And it's a hound. It's part of the inlet, the waterway inlet, right? The canal system, you could kind of call it, right? And I looked right up, and guess what street sign I saw? The name of the street was called Dexter Gordon Street, Dexter Gordon Gill, and that's anybody knows, saxophonist, right? African American, black American saxophonist, and you know, I was matter of fact, I mean, it goes to just show you that people know how. There's a lot of people that know how to give credit where credit is due. That's not something that all people don't know. All people know how to do that. But this group, they could do it. They know how to do it. They just fucking refuse to do it. And that's, to me, is like a sign of just being a cornball on a human to human stand. Like, it's pathetic. It doesn't draw hate from me. It draws like, damn, man, I feel sorry for you if you can't realize that flaw. You know, if you can't see how that is contradictory to being a stand-up person, to gaining and garnishing respect for yourself. Because I tell you what, when I saw that Dexter Gordon sign, it made me respect a lot of Danes. Because I was like, damn, they know my culture too? Like, see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? Acknowledgement, what acknowledgement does? I was like, damn, that is really fucking cool. It inspired me to want to know more about their culture. It inspired me to help me acknowledge their culture, acknowledge their contributions to the world, as a matter of fact, Scandinavians, or their presence. You know, there's not just bad, there's good, there's bad, there's a lot of things in between. You see what I mean? And the world and the people have a lot of nuances to them. You know what I mean? And so for me, I just feel more like the bigger body of the human family when we do that. And I feel like these guys they're just alienating themselves from the human body, from and not just from, you know, although he might look the way he looks, that doesn't mean all white people like this shit. A lot of, or if you want to call them white people that identify as that, or people that look like that, all people that look like this do not agree with these people. Like, straight up, philosophically, they do not. There's a lot that do not agree around the world. I'm just telling you that. A lot of these people came to Europe and started preaching like J.D. Vance, and they looked at his ass and was like, and laughed at him like a damn fool. Like, what the hell is this joker talking about? They couldn't understand it, you know? So, yeah, I just want to say I'm for people acknowledging, everybody acknowledge each other and acknowledge it like you got some damn sense. You know? Acknowledge like you acknowledge facts, but also be mindful that there's never just if you want to start off with acknowledging bad, understand this, there never is just bad. Wherever you look, whoever you look at, there never is just bad. You see what I mean? There never is just one time period either, you know? So things change for people, and you got to be fair about it. You know, at the end of the day, we all affected by the same things. So, you know, yeah. But on that note, On that note, I'm gonna be out in a second, but let me see what does Sleeshy say? How long we in JD's marriage? JD's marriage, man. Hey, listen, they're all up to lies. They're all phonies and fakes. So it's going to last as long as they can hide it. But I tell you one thing for sure, it won't last past the big lie, and that is the release of the Epstein files and the end of Trump's administration. Oh, the whole thing is going to be, the veil is going to be lifted. You see what I mean? 100%, no question. And the real ones, you're going to get a chance to see the real people, what they really are, what they're really about. Right now, they know that the heat is on, and so they're trying their best to cover up. I mean, they're trying to cover up the makeup squad. They got Barbie dolls all over the place, and hiding, pretending professionalism is how good you put your makeup on and shit. It's like, this is totally fake. They got people that have no experience in nothing they're doing at the top of the chain. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is just the phoniest. Everything is. So, of course, JD Vance's shit. But you know what? I'm going to stay out of their business because she married his ass. And that's something not right about her in the brain that she didn't see. Obviously, her man is out here embarrassing her like that on national TV. Like, it was your choice. And a lot of people, listen, this is why I say don't get caught up in racism. Don't get caught up in these things, in the framings either, like totally, right? Because look at these folks, man. They don't treat each other too well. Like, you see, like, there would be people that supported Trump. There should have been no reason why any American would ever in their life support Trump or Elon Musk. Never. They're totally counterproductive to 80% of all Americans. But yet, for some reason, they voted for them. We had Palestine. I mean, I feel sorry for Palestinians, their situation that they in, though, by the way. But you had Palestinian Americans voting for Trump. You had this. Every day I'm waking up and I'm seeing another person that's like, damn, you voted for Trump? You voted for Trump? Everyone that voted for Trump is getting their ass kicked right now, except the wealthy. So it goes to show you, it's not the color, it's not ethnicity, it's not religion, it's not any of that. It's not your sexuality. It's not your because look, Trump just pardoned a gay dude that was ripping off everyone who voted for him, everyone who donated to him. Dude, what's the guy's name? He's just stealing their credit card numbers and shit. So it's not about any of that stuff with these people. It's about some wavelength where you have a simple ass mind that they've tapped into. That's what I think. They somehow have tapped into simpleton logic, right? Easy tropes, easy answers, that must be what it is. Slash it. You know what I mean? Just easy feel good politics, I don't need comprehensive immigration reform, which, by the way, I'm for everybody. Goddamn, you can't have a country if you don't have immigration reform, if you don't have real immigration policy. But these people ain't even for real immigration policy. Therefore, just fuck around and have cameras looking at you snatching babies from mothers. That's not immigration. I guarantee, and they don't release any data. I guarantee you, they're going to expel less immigrants, illegal immigrants, than Obama did at the end of this. I guarantee it. And on their way to every immigrant that they what they call illegal immigrant that they throw out, they're going to manhandle and harm and maim and harass 10 times more American citizens just to do less than Obama. So it's something like just extremely dumb about a lot of these folks. Even their ideal, this liberalism shit, man, that shit dumb, That shit is dumb. That shit, you're asking for people to rise up against you when you have these concepts and you get power. Like, it's anti-people. It's anti-democracy. A lot of these folks are, and they just casually throw it out and talk about it and admit it. You know, in podcasts. Yeah, this is who I am. I'm anti-democracy. I'm anti-women. I'm anti-this. I'm anti-equal wage. You know, Peter Thiel said he was for good wages. He said he was for health care and all this shit. And what did he do? Vote for a person cutting it. So there's a problem there. There's a serious problem there. But let me go, y'all. I'm going to be back. Guess what? For 3 days coming up, starting tomorrow, I'm going to be streaming twice a day. You know what I'm saying? So I can really get into the news. But I wanted to just talk a little bit about Peter Thiel, you know, and I'm going to go back to Peter Thiel. But I'm glad that I did this because I kind of saw some Rubicon. I saw where the Rubicon is with them. And, you know, it's good to do that, just to hear it and for yourself and see what it's actually like. So, yeah. So on that note, I'm going to be out. Let me see. Anybody else got this? Got a comment? He voted. Exactly. He voted in. They are. Yeah, they're anti-American. They're definitely, if you ask me, but they're claiming the crazy shit about them is that they're claiming that liberals are the end of America. They're claiming that we're the destruction of it. They're claiming like that we are like a cancer. Like, yo, that's what I mean by anti-American. Like, damn, you're against all the people that made your country great. That made not your country, our country great. You're against it. You know, they have no love for the people that struggled the hardest to hold the country up. No love for those people. That's just ass backwards, you know. And yeah, but all right, y'all. I'm gonna be back. I appreciate y'all. Damn, this can go on forever. But I appreciate you guys. And if you haven't subscribed. Today I put the chat in subscriber mode because I just wanted it to be a little calmer, you know. And yeah, and it was cool that I got to do that because then, you know, we get enough friendlies in the chat. But I will be back in a few days. Not in a few days, in 24 hours. So we're going to catch up. Peace. Appreciate it.
Real cool, no fussing. I'd rather go kicking in the streets with the bums and use the knowledge to collect what? Some funds. Open a non-profit and build a damn school. And this is the story of how a great king rules. There's many that claim to know the local demographic, but don't have the nerve to tell you the truth. It's tragic, but I do. So sit back and let me spit this shit to you. You feel better when I spit this shit to you. Despite the system trying to clamp down on the people will learn how to stand up to evil. Not evil that's across the globe, that's too far, but evil lies in their own backyard. And fighting, it's not an option, they can't win. The government, it's not supposed to represent sin, but then again they do, and that's a problem. So let's go down and figure out how to solve it.
Release
it's
the
not fun
Epstein
being a rapper that can't
Release
speak,
the
but we
Epstein
do,
files.
yes, unless we make fat beats. Yo, we smoke weed, break up trees. Listen, bringing fat beats, that is our mission. You wanted to see us, homeboy, shut up and listen. Thelonious and Big Bennett, brother, check the vision. Mentality, several different realities. Enter the Star Trek room when you hear the boom. I be the Walkman with the super bass. Automatic stop, yes, stereo cassette player. With the delayer, freaky lyrical sprayer. Extraterrestrial rhyme sayer. I be the poetical VIC/master of the ceremony to the bony. Won't you come step with me? I'm on a historical journey, kinda like Sigourney. Implore me to represent the attorney that represents my niggas, go figure. Here's the card, they call me Uncle Vigor. Niggas love your blunts, down your liquors. I read the parallel to the fiction. You're fixated on this brother's nature. Relaxed behavior, I might save your change. Flip it, rearrange. The whole concept, yo, is good for all your brain. Insane, psychotic, neurotic, black onyx, and hooked on phonics. Yes, atomic, it bleeds like a bonnet. Cut with the Asiatic, they all up on it. Rhyme static with the robotic type of skill. You wonder, is this nigga Vic really for real? It's still, but only necessary in the berry. I'm milk like dairy, they quite contrary. That's scary, but I'm a dog in the prairie. I scurry to grab my bones and just scurry. Lyrical flurry, go get bitch is secretary with impeccable dictions. My style money buried. So get a hold of your own shit real fast. Fucking with us, we take it right out your ass.
Ladies and gentlemen.
They want war. Crime babies looking for food. Starvation, the recipe. People subdued. When the people you trust got it in for you. Deceit is the word of the day in every crew. Don't let it go. It's from the days of old. Time is up, but some still do not know. Can I make up my mind? Is it worth the dime? Do I have to take a minute just to make it mine? Life's never fair, but don't listen to the TV. Go out and take a listen to the streets with the people in the slums and the homeless bums with degrees and degrees sitting under